Well, the very first prize fight I ever covered was Mike Tyson versus Jesse Ferguson in upstate New York in 1987. I had been assigned to cover boxing by a new incoming sports division boss at ABC Sports who wanted to get rid of me, wanted me to walk away from an existing guaranteed contract. Most specifically, wanted me not to have the written into the contract privileges that I was going to have at the Calgary Winter Olympics in 1988. So now, less than a year later, he wants to get rid of me, and he decides the way to do that is to embarrass this preppy college-type kid from Western North Carolina by assigning me to something I would never understand. He had no idea. He didn't know me at all. He did not realize that the very first sports event my mother had ever sat me down and specifically instructed me to watch was Sugar Ray Robinson versus Bobo Olson for the middleweight championship in 1955. That the men in my family were boxing fans, even after my father died. That my mother was a tremendously devoted lover of Sugar Ray Robinson, and that I had a deep boxing background all through childhood and teenage years. He just took one look at me and thought, okay, there's no way he fits into this world. So he sends me up to Glens Falls, New York to do Tyson versus Ferguson. And of course, you will remember that that's the day that in the fourth or fifth round, Tyson throws an uppercut that explodes Jesse's nose. I mean, it just detonates the middle of his face in such a way that now there's blood all over the ring, there's blood all over Mike. You know, it's a colossal kind of passion play show, and eventually the referee stops the fight in the fifth round, and that was Mike's first television network exposure, and the legend sort of begins to proliferate at that point. And I remember gathering up my stuff to leave ringside and thinking to myself, look at what I've happened into here. Look at what I have stumbled into by accident. Because listening to the post-fight interview, all those quotes began to roll out. That was the day he first said in public. That was the day he first said, boxing is a hurt business. Everybody's got a plan until you hit them. All those quotes started to come out within the next couple of weeks, and I was already now locked into this position of being, in effect, his television biographer. And that went on for as long as I stayed at ABC, and by a year later, I was in Tokyo doing Tyson versus Tony Tubbs, and I was the voice of boxing on HBO.
Is that the fight where he said I tried to catch him on the tip of the nose and drive the bone into his brain? Remember that?
Alex Wallow did the post-fight interview, and Alex Wallow asked Mike a couple questions, and then he got to, tell me about the uppercut. Well, Castanamato taught me that the purpose of the uppercut is to drive the nose bone into the brain. I was trying to drive his nose bone into his brain. And I'm standing there thinking, oh my God, people haven't seen anybody exactly like this. So, that was the day. And that began the whole process by which now, 35, 36 years later, I'm sitting here with you.
What's the, when you were at HBO with Mike, what's the fight that stands out most in your mind from the HBO time with Tyson?
Well, there's no way you can get away from February 10, 1990, Tokyo, Japan. And by the way, it was February 11 in Tokyo, and it was February 10 here in the United States. And there's no way you can get away from the cosmic impact of that particular moment. And to this day, I still say the two biggest upsets in boxing history, take your pick, are Clay Liston won Miami Beach, February 25, 1964, and Tyson Douglas, February 10, 1990 in Tokyo. And the simple fact that I was physically at both of those fights, that the first one was the very first live prize fight I ever saw, and that the second one is the one that maybe surpasses it as the biggest upset in boxing history, and I'm the voice of that fight for the American audience. It's astonishing. And you cannot look at that and absorb it without saying meant to be. This was a form of destiny for me. Nobody, when I got into television broadcasting as the first person to stand on the sidelines with a camera and a microphone in 1974 at Tennessee versus UCLA, nobody would have said, "Oh, that's the person who's going to become the voice of boxing." That was only through a bizarre path and a circumstance that was, at the end of the day, meant to be.
As you're watching Tyson Douglas unfold, what's going through your mind?
Well, this actually begins months before, because from Tyson versus Ferguson, I go forward calling Mike's fights, and eventually I'm calling them on HBO, but at first I'm calling them on ABC, because we did a series of several more fights, Alex Wallow and me, commenting together on ABC. And the impression the whole time is because of a highlight reel that had been shown on every local news show in the country, a string of knockouts, and then the nosebone fight against Ferguson. The impression is this is an indomitable destroyer. Nobody can match up with him, and in every fight he blows the opponent away for an early knockout. Not true. He went the distance with Tony Tucker. He went the distance with Mitch Blood Green. He went to the last 10 seconds with Jose Ribalta. I watched all those fights. I studied those fights. So I go to Tokyo knowing that there's a certain kind of opponent. If he's taller, significantly taller, if he's a right-handed fighter who brings the power punch, the right hand over the top, where it becomes difficult for Mike to see it coming. And Ribalta had that. Tucker had that. Mitch Blood Green had that. Those people were giving Mike trouble. And the Green fight wasn't easy to score. The Tucker fight wasn't exactly a blow away. Ribalta, he takes till the last 10 seconds to knock Ribalta out. So there was already evidence, okay, that if he wasn't mentally prepared and totally locked in, he could have trouble with Buster Douglas, who was a big, long jab, right hand over the top type puncher, and oh, by the way, a better athlete than any of those other guys who had given him trouble. So I knew going in, this is not an absolute written in stone walkover. This is the kind of fight with which Mike has had trouble. And oh, by the way, now he no longer has Cuss in his corner, and he has these two fledgling trainers who may or may not know how to communicate together. And oh, by the way, by the fourth or fifth round, whatever it is, you're seeing them use a water-filled glove, rubber glove, to try to stop the swelling around his eyes. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is amateur hour. Even I could see that. So, it wasn't the overwhelming, out-of-the-blue shocker that the whole world wanted to treat it as. And it wasn't, I knew from subsequent interactions with him and communication, it wasn't a shocker to Mike. He knew going in that Douglas was a much tougher opponent than the rest of the world was giving him credit for. So, that education helped me to be a little bit more aware and knowledgeable than the average fan of what could happen in Tokyo.